What's going on, you guys? I know I made a video last night just recapping the game, but my brain was a little bit fried. I was dejected. I was sad. I was hurt. But I didn't really have my thoughts together. And then I kind of got to thinking about yesterday's game, and there were some points that I wanted to harp on again. And one thing I really thought about and realized today was that last night's game, in which the Eagles, more specifically Jalen Hurts, turned the ball over 4 times, really hammers home how ridiculous it was that Nick Sirianni went up there in that press conference and said his offensive philosophy is not turning the ball over, winning the turnover battle. And it just shows you how ridiculous it is, because one thing that most fans, the casual fans, and I'm not trying to act like above all, but some football fans don't understand that turnovers are a result of something. They are the effect. They aren't the cause. So when he says their offensive identity is not turning the ball over, no, it's not. Not turning the ball over is a result of your offensive identity, partially, but mainly the Eagles, and I'll explain why. Most offenses, you know, not turning the ball over or turning the ball over is just a byproduct of how the game goes. Some of it can be luck, some of it can be good quarterback play, bad ball security, all of that. But for the Eagles, the reason their offensive philosophy was not turning the ball over is because they don't even try and do anything on offense. They don't put the ball in harm's way. So your offensive philosophy isn't not turning the ball over. Your offensive philosophy is playing a coward's high school offense. And as a result of that, you don't turn the ball over. You know, people talk about Jalen Hurts not turning the ball over as some sort of skill, and I agree it is. But part of that is because they don't really force many balls into tight windows. He doesn't layer the ball into coverage and all that. Now, granted, I don't think he's going to throw 4 interceptions every time he's asked to throw the ball over the middle like he did last game. But when you're asked to throw the ball over the middle more, you might see more turnovers. And so that's why there's this dichotomy between turning the ball over and playing well. That sometimes in order to have a good game where your offense puts up more points, you're going to have to risk turnovers. So when Nick Sirianni says his offensive identity is not turning the ball over, it's not. That's just a lie. It would be like somebody showing off that they never got pulled over when they don't have their license. Of course you don't. You're not in a position to have that happen. You're not in a position. It's like a general manager saying, I've never made a bad trade, his second day on the job. You've made no trades. Of course you're not going to turn the ball over when you're not putting the ball in harm's way. You're not trying to do anything. If you went up there and you spiked the ball on the ground every play, you wouldn't say your offensive identity is not turning the ball over. You'd say it's spiking the ball, which it is. So that whole thing is ridiculous. And now you have these writers, specifically Elliot Shore-Parks, saying the Eagles need to go back to not turning the ball over. What he really means is the Eagles need to go back to running their offense where Jalen Hurts is protected like a baby and doesn't put the ball in harm's way. And that is not the correct thing to do, because the goal in football is to score as many points as possible. So that's that. The other thought I had, which was really frustrating, is that in most ways, when you lose in a football season, you at least get some sort of clarity. Let's look at the Jets, for example. The Jets are going nowhere this season, but we all know that they need a quarterback, or other teams that they need to fire their coach. And, Jalen Hurts talks about, game to game learning from losses and mistakes, and that's all fine. But my concern is that the long-term outlook of this team, we're not really going to be able to get any clarity or learn from this losing, because the quarterback isn't playing well. The head coach is an idiot, in my opinion. The offensive coordinator is definitely an idiot, in my opinion. The offensive line isn't playing well. And so you have all these things, and they're all playing badly. And I'm afraid that Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie are going to get together at the end of the year, and they're not going to be able to come to any rational conclusion as to who to blame for all this. Now, don't get me wrong. I think everyone deserves blame. But if Jalen Hurts was running an NFL-style offense and not this garbage week to week where they're just constantly making up new things on the fly, and he was struggling, I think they would say, let's look to maybe move on from the quarterback. If Jalen Hurts was playing well, about as well as he could, like he was the first part of the season, even though the offense was struggling, I thought he was executing what they were asking him to do as best as he could. Obviously, that was a low bar. You could say, well, the coach isn't good. But now you have this dilemma, for lack of a better phrase, where everything is just shit. And so it's impossible to come to any conclusion. You could say Jalen would be playing better with the coach, or there was a more structured offense. You could say that, the offense is not well designed, but with a better quarterback, they would be winning these games. And so both things being true, I don't know how you come to a conclusion on what to do at the end of the season. I know we're putting the cart before the horse here, and there's still a season to be played, but we all know where this is going. They have no chance of winning the Super Bowl. I said it yesterday, this isn't just a Super Bowl hangover. This is drinking yourself to death after the Super Bowl. They're on their way to repeating the same thing that happened with Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz, but at least that situation, there was more clarity involved. And so I'm just afraid that there is going to be results this offseason. We all know it's not going to be the same next year, but I'm worried that there's going to be bad process. And when there's bad process involved in making decisions, it leads to bad decisions. And so that's why I was clamoring all season long for them to run an NFL offense. Because then at least okay, Jalen Hurts can't run an NFL offense when things aren't perfect, or whatever the case may be. Or you start implementing plays over the middle of the field, and he learns to get used to it as the season goes on. But instead, you were winning these close games, and it was just like, oh, well, a win is a win. We don't need to change anything. Our offensive philosophy is to not do anything and not turn the ball over. And now you're in this position where you have to just reconstruct your offensive philosophy, your offensive identity every week. I mean, it's different every week. It's almost Christmas, and Nick Sirianni is saying, I'm going to take more control this week. Like, this all should have been constructed in July in training camp. That's the problem here, and that's why this has no hope. So just the foundation of this team, specifically the offense, is completely rotten. And we're going to waste a Super Bowl caliber defense and a Super Bowl caliber defensive-minded head coach or defensive coordinator in Vic Fangio, who you could argue could be a head coach, but that's a topic for another day. So those are just 2 points that I really thought about yesterday, and both are very frustrating. And we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. But it's not good, so give me a comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I will see you guys next time.